Hello class, Mr. Sanderson here. In this video I wanted to talk through the main ideas and concepts of circular motion and relate that back to inertia and forces. So we're going to take a look at a couple examples today, and I'm going to end with the equation we use for centripetal force. So let's get started. Let's imagine we are in a car and the car is traveling at a certain velocity down the road. The car and the passengers both have inertia, and from Newton's first law we know that that means the object will be in motion, continue in motion in a straight line path unless acted upon by another force. So if the driver slams on its brakes and we have a net force in the opposite direction, obviously the car is going to slow down and the passengers are going to feel something, right? As the car slows down, that force acts on the car to accelerate it, but the passengers still are moving at a constant speed forward, therefore they feel as if they're moving forward. That's not because a force is pushing them, it's because they were already in motion and their inertia is at play. They will feel the change in that velocity when something from the car is applying a force back towards them, right? So maybe the seatbelt or maybe the car steering wheel, things like that, start to push against the car or the person in the car as they're coming to a stop. Well, this is really similar if we take a look at circular motion too, because inertia is still at play. We have to consider that when things are moving and turning. So if I have something that's moving in a circle and turning in a circle, I'm going to have to consider the forces that are changing its straight line motion path, okay? It's traveling in a straight line and it's approaching a curve. We can ask ourselves, what is going to cause the car's velocity to change? We know with inertia, the velocity would want to continue in a straight line path and not turn around the corner. Therefore, we have to figure out what force or a combination of forces cause the car to actually turn a corner and which direction are they pointing. So one way to analyze this is to think about what would cause that direction to change. I would need to have some kind of force that is pushing the car towards the center. And every point along the curve, I need to have that same force pushing the car to the center because its inertia wants it to continue in a straight line path. In fact, this is really true if there's an icy road. Imagine if we get to this part of the curve and the amount of force pushing it back to the center, the frictional force that's making it change its velocity, is suddenly gone. So what used to be there was a force that was directed to the center, but if there's enough ice, maybe that force completely goes away, so there's no frictional force. That means the car would continue in its straight line path and not be able to complete this circle. We need to have a center-seeking force, the centripetal force, at every point along the circle for the object to complete that circle path. And that's what we're going to be taking a look at, is where does that center-seeking force come from? In a car example, it comes from the friction between the tires and the road. In this example, I have a bowling ball, and it's going to be rolling at a constant velocity, and I'm going to try to get it to turn around this corner with the mallet. So the only point of contact I have is the mallet. So as the ball is rolling in, it has a constant velocity. To get it to turn, I need to tap it in the center, towards the center of the circle. Every time I tap it, I'm applying a little bit of force, and it's causing it to change its velocity, causing it to accelerate in a circle. Similarly, I have this marble that is moving around the circle inside this hoop. To maintain the circular motion, there must be a force from the walls pushing inwards on the marble. If that force disappears, then the marble motion will continue. And notice it continued in a straight line motion because there was no force causing it to turn. There was no center directed force because the wall was gone. So the whole time the wall's pushing against the marble, pushing. And when the wall's no longer there, the push isn't there either. So it will continue in a straight line path, in this case hitting the cup. As you can see in each of these examples, in order to maintain circular motion, there was a center-seeking force. That was the friction between the car's wheels and the road, so that Fc equals the force of friction to maintain that circular motion at all points along the curve. When we were talking about our lab and the rubber stoppers and the weights, that was the tension inside the string that kept the stopper moving in a circle. Without it, it would continue in a straight line motion tangent. The bowling ball, once we got to where we wanted the bowling ball to curve, we had to start tapping against it towards the center of the circle, and every tap was a force that helped change that direction and directed it to the center. So that is our center-seeking force. And when we looked at the ring and the marble, the wall provided that center-seeking force. So it was pushing against the marble at all the points in order to create that center-seeking force. When we want to find the value of this force and calculate it, we can use this equation. Centripetal force, or center-seeking force, is equal to the object's mass that's moving in the circle. So it could be a car, it could be a rubber stopper, it could be a bowling ball or a marble, times the velocity it's moving squared divided by the radius of the circle. This equation will let us figure out and calculate the centripetal force. Okay? We would measure the force in newtons, the mass in kilograms, the velocity in meters per second, and the radius in meters. All right. Please reach out if you have any questions, and as you work through the practice problems using our centripetal force equation. Thanks.